Hi, I'm Brian Kellerman, the Chief Quality and Safety Officer at Kellerman Consulting, and this is episode 4 in our video series on dietary supplement manufacturing. In this series, we have covered the basics of dietary supplement manufacturing, including how these operations are regulated and what record keeping is essential to these programs. In this episode, we are going to cover the requirements for testing in dietary supplement programs and how to ensure your program is designed to meet the regulatory requirements of 21 CFR 111. We have already discussed in our previous episodes that testing is a key component of a dietary supplement program. In this episode, we are going to break down the ideal testing regimen and compare it to the minimum viable testing requirements to help provide the window of acceptable testing choices. Whether your operation has built an internal laboratory or sends samples out to a third-party laboratory makes a major difference in how we approach testing. We will reference the difference between in-house testing and outside testing throughout this discussion. So let's start with what we are looking for in these testing programs. Because 21 CFR 111 does not require a food safety plan, as is the case with food production operations, there is a much stronger emphasis on proof that each supplement and its contents are accurate to the nutritional label claims of the product. The purpose of the testing program is to prove both internally and to regulators that each time the ingredients are processed, the stability and availability of the nutrients are maintained. That means that operations is looking for key parts in the process where change occurs. And at those changes, what types of testing should be done to prove that the supplements maintain their efficacy and potency after the change. Ideally, in a gold standard dietary supplement program, we would perform an analytical test after every processing step. Those steps could be extracting, concentrating, liquefying, separating, distilling, fermenting, mixing, or other physical actions made to ingredients. We would also have pathogen and microbial testing at the end of the process on all finished lots to demonstrate safety for the consumer. It's here that we have our first instance of discussion about the difference between an internal laboratory versus sending product to a third-party laboratory. If we have a microbiological or analytical laboratory on site, ordering up the next test is a marginal cost of the materials and the wages paid to the technicians. As such, each additional test is a negligible cost, and performing those extra tests is easy, and only the time it takes to run the tests will limit how and when we test. Where tests have to be sent to an outside lab, costs can be high and each additional test can become prohibitively expensive, to the point where production may no longer be profitable or even cost neutral. This may have a strong influence on determining the limits of what we can test for and how often those tests are performed. In a perfect setup, without cost or time constraints, we would simply run tests after each operational step and confirm control over the nutrients in our supplements at all times. But this is of course not practical, so let's start with the minimum testing we need to have in place in order to show control. Verification of ingredient safety is required with each lot of incoming material. We could make a choice to accept the values on a COA, or we can perform testing with each incoming product. If we use COAs as verification, we need to have a written sign-off on those COAs each time they come in, as they are replacing testing that would otherwise be done by the facility. With this option, we can easily see a viable approach to testing incoming ingredients. Where we have a certificate of analysis from a supplier we trust, we can elect not to test the incoming ingredient. However, where a supplier has not established or maintained trust, or where there is no certificate of testing for incoming ingredients, we must perform a test on that material to demonstrate efficacy and potency of the nutrient within that ingredient. Whether we have a testing protocol for incoming ingredients, we use COA verification in place of testing, or a hybrid approach testing some incoming ingredients while checking COAs for others, the standard operating procedure for this incoming program must be written, up to date, and the responsible employees must be properly trained. Ideally, one tests ingredients every time they are received. However, there are options if you are not able to do so. If an ingredient from a known supplier always has conforming results for tests, over time, one can justify reducing the amount of the tests for that ingredient from that supplier, as long as you do so in the form of a risk assessment justifying that decision. Since we are focused on how operational steps affect nutritional composition, we may take the position that the processing or composition in the supplements are not meaningfully altered in the process. Where research or testing determines that processing steps do not diminish or alter nutrients, we are left with the need to test finished products to assure that the supplements are accurate to label claims. Unless there are significant mitigating circumstances, and here budget should not be considered an acceptable reason not to conduct tests, it should be operational practice to test finished products for nutritional composition for each lot. Where product testing has been performed over a long period of time, such as months or years with results that are in specification, the facility may elect to use marker testing, where a subset of tests are performed to infer conformance of the entire batch in order to save money. In dietary supplement manufacturing, finished product testing is essential. If your business identifies that it is not financially feasible to establish a valid finished product testing program, please consider the viability of your operations and the risks you take by not following regulatory guidance. As part of testing for dietary supplements, it is common and best practice to perform a full screen of biological indicators and pathogens common to the food supply. Because processing of dietary supplements is generally performed without thermal kill steps, processing is expected to take place in a clean room with careful controls of biological, chemical, and physical hazards. Processors are further expected to keep careful batch records and conduct label checks in addition to performing aggressive testing for food safety. There should be no detectable pathogens of any kind where pathogen testing is performed on finished products. Where any pathogens are discovered, products must be disposed of, and process changes and/or ingredient changes would be required to prevent recurrence. For indicator organisms such as yeast, mold, and coliforms that are not themselves pathogens, limits are based on the results of product testing over time. In our video series on environmental monitoring, we established how to set up an EMP program and how to determine acceptable levels for indicator organisms in those programs. For more information on environmental monitoring and establishing limits on indicator organism testing, please see our video series on environmental monitoring programs. So let's review. Your facility must establish a testing program that addresses incoming ingredients, finished product, and environmental monitoring. A typical full screen of food pathogens includes E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, Staphylococcus aureus, yeast, mold, and coliforms. You may also consider testing for moisture for dry powders or other biological or physical characteristics that are relevant to your product. A hold and release program must be in place to control all non-conforming product, as well as all ingredients, work in process, and finished product subject to testing and awaiting test results. Where product is awaiting results from a test, the product should not be released to the next processing step or shipped until results are confirmed. Finally, regardless of how robust and comprehensive the testing program is or is not, each test result for each batch must be recorded in the MMR. A review of test results, in-process records, and all applicable holds must be verified for release prior to shipping final dietary supplements. In our next episode, we are going to look at good manufacturing practices and employee hygiene expectations and requirements for dietary supplement operations and how they fit into the MMR and overall safety program. Thank you for watching. For more food safety training videos and resources, please check out our website at kellermanconsulting.com and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or follow us on LinkedIn.